Have you ever felt paralyzed by fear, anxiety, or stress over something that may or may not happen? We've all been there, worrying endlessly, playing out worst-case scenarios in our minds until we're utterly consumed by dread. Yet when we look back, we realize how much of our suffering was self-imposed by our own uncontrolled imagination running wild. The philosophy of Stoicism teaches that we suffer more from imagination than from reality itself. By mastering our perceptions and desires, we can achieve a profound inner peace despite external circumstances. The following 15 timeless wisdoms can liberate you from the self-created prison of irrational thoughts and unfounded fears. 1. We catastrophize and make situations bigger than they are in our minds. Our minds are incredible instruments, but left unchecked, they can become masters of deception and distortion. When faced with a setback or challenge, it's all too easy to spiral into catastrophic thinking, blowing situations out of proportion until they seem unconquerable. But the reality is often far less severe than the monster our imagination has created. High-stake business negotiations, difficult conversations, public speaking, our minds can hijack us into believing the stakes are life or death. But are they really? Take a step back, and you may find the risk is acceptable or even negligible compared to the doomsday visions in your head. Learn to reality test your thoughts. By pausing to ask ourselves, what's the worst that can realistically happen here? We reclaim our power over imagined fears. The monster under the bed deflates into a shadow without substance when we shine the light of reason upon it. Free yourself from catastrophizing. 2. We build up unrealistic expectations that breed discontent. Whether it's fairy tale romances, dream careers, or picture-perfect lives, we're constantly fed idealized visions of how things should be, and we eagerly drink the poisoned chalice, letting these fantasies shape our expectations in ways that breed perpetual dissatisfaction and unhappiness with reality. The loved one who can never live up to the Disney prince/princess ideal. The job that loses its sheen after the harsh realities set in. The flawless life that doesn't exist outside digitally edited corners of social media. Our unmet fantasies become self-inflicted torments. But what if we stripped away those unrealistic expectations and learned to find contentment in what is, rather than what we imagine? By letting go of fanciful ideals, we open our eyes to the beauty inherent in the imperfect, messy reality around us. Embrace and appreciate things as they are, not as you wish they could be. 3. We dwell endlessly on past hurts and regrets. How much of your valuable mental and emotional energy gets drained by ruminating over past pains, mistakes, or perceived slights? Replaying those old tapes and memories only keeps you trapped in a prison of your own making, suffering over and over for things that can't be undone. The harsh truth? The past is immutable. No amount of relentless thinking will rewrite what has already occurred, and every moment spent regretting and agonizing over bygones is one stolen from making the most of today and shaping your future self. Yes, learn from missteps, but then make like the famous Stoic philosophers. Let go of what you can't control and focus your efforts on the areas of life you can positively influence. Free yourself from the shackles of dwelled-upon history and live fully in the present. 4. We get attached to outcomes outside our control. In life, there are things we can directly influence through our intentions and actions, and things utterly outside our control. Yet how much torment do we bring upon ourselves by clinging to unhealthy attachments and obsessing over the latter? The unwanted job rejection, the romantic pursuit that doesn't work out, the dream opportunity that passes you by. By getting hopelessly fixated on these outcomes and willing them to be different, we only make ourselves miserable over circumstances we held no real sway over. But what if we reframed our perspective? What if, rather than railing in vain against the unmovable tides, we focused our energy solely on the areas we could affect through our conduct and efforts? True personal empowerment lies in pursuing that which is within our control and letting go of the rest. 5. We enslave ourselves to unfulfilling pursuits driven by insecurity. At our core, most of us are motivated by two competing forces: confidence, self-assuredness, and peace of mind on the one hand, anxiety, insecurity, and fear on the other. And all too often, it's the negative side that pushes us to chase empty, unfulfilling pursuits. We relentlessly strive for empty status symbols, hoping they'll fill the void within. We pursue wealth or possessions, not because we genuinely desire them, but to quell our desperate need for external validation and self-worth. We contort ourselves into idealized images we think will earn others' approval and admiration. But these fear-driven quests only breed more suffering, as the void can never be filled from without. True contentment arises from listening to our authentic inner voice and pursuing meaning over hollow achievement. Break the shackles of insecurity that bind you to vain pursuits. 6. We create dramas over trivialities due to our egos. How often do we inflate molehills into mountains, blowing everyday trifles out of proportion, into drawn-out battles that sap our energy and well-being? Our egos love high drama and feeling hard done by, so we confect outrage and indignation at the smallest slight. That side-eye look from a stranger, the unwanted constructive feedback, the harmless comment that we choose to take as a grave offense. And before we know it, our imagination has spun it into an epic saga worthy of the big screen, leaving us fuming about an incident that warranted barely a shrug. But what if we punctured the self-important delusion? What if we faced small ups and downs and micro-aggravations with equanimity instead of spiraling into self-made theatrics? There's profound power in separating the truly meaningful from the petty trivialities we needlessly let disturb our peace. 7. We fill our heads with toxic negativity and worst-case projections, consuming a steady diet of negativity, be it from the 24/7 doom-saying news cycle or the endlessly pessimistic social media feeds we follow, has an insidious impact. It trains our minds to instinctively gravitate toward worst-case scenarios about every conceivable situation. An unexpected bill arrives, never just an inconvenience to deal with, but the start of a nightmarish spiral into destitution. A relationship hits a rough patch, obviously the beginning of the end and guaranteed future heartbreak. Even good news gets filtered through the negativity bias, with our minds leaping to wonder how and when it will inevitably go wrong. By allowing those destructive thought patterns to take root, we become our own tormentors. We weave intricate webs of worry and darkness that strangle our capacity for rational perspective. Break the spell of this psychic self-harm by becoming fiercely discerning over the inputs you let occupy precious mental real estate. 8. We resist the present and crave greener pastures. In our clawing desperation to achieve that next level of status, success, relationship bliss, etc., we tend to dismiss and overlook the great bounties we already possess. We become experts at taking our gifts and blessings for granted as we chase the shiny object in the horizon. But what if we reoriented our perspective? What if we worked to find deep gratitude, contentment, and even joy in our present circumstances, rather than dismissing them as insufficient stepping stones en route to imagined future satisfaction? Yes, have ambition and stretch for lofty goals, but don't let the pursuit blind you to the profound beauty of what you can experience right here, right now, in this present moment. Those who can embrace this tend to find themselves far happier and at peace. Here are the points with a second paragraph added to each one to provide more value and detail, while keeping the language simple and easy to understand. 9. We entertain poisonous, self-sabotaging doubts and fears. Make no mistake, fear is a powerfully destructive force. When we let it run amok in our minds, it morphs into toxic self-doubts that sabotage us and prevent growth. It fuels the excuses and stories we tell ourselves about why we can't take risks or venture out of our limiting comfort zones. I'm not good enough, I'll fail miserably, people will laugh at me. These mental barriers are pure fiction until we choose to breathe life into them. Face your fears head-on, and you'll be amazed by what you can achieve. Our fears often come from a primal place of wanting to avoid pain, embarrassment, or failure at all costs. But by letting these unfounded doubts rule us, we prevent ourselves from ever growing, taking chances, and reaching our full potential. The truth is, the worst that can happen is rarely as catastrophic as our anxious minds make it out to be. Start pushing against your comfort zone in small ways and you'll gain confidence. We get addicted to complaining rather than solving problems. Grousing and complaining can become habit-forming crutches. It's easier to vent frustrations than put in the work to address them. But perpetual negativity is a soul-sucking force that keeps you stuck in cycles of self-pity and dissatisfaction. When you find yourself slipping into complaint mode, take a pause. Ask yourself whether wallowing is serving any productive purpose or just becoming self-indulgent misery porn. Then choose. You can stay aboard the complaint train to resentment or get to work on actual solutions. The choice is yours. Complaining provides a quick hit of validation and sympathy from others when we're frustrated. But taken too far, it becomes a powerless cycle of indulging grievances with no productive outcome. Instead of venting anger repeatedly, see if you can refocus that energy into brainstorming actionable steps you can take to improve the situation you're frustrated about, or reframe your perspective entirely. 11. We seek validation from others instead of valuing ourselves. Too many of us walk through life wearing glaring, "please validate me" signs. We become junkies, desperately seeking our next hit of praise and approval from others to fill the gaping void of self-worth within. But no amount of external validation will ever cure the issue. That has to come from within. As long as you locate your core sense of okayness in the opinions of others, you'll forever remain a craven supplicant, begging for scraps. Start seeing yourself through a new lens of self-love and self-acceptance. That's true freedom. It's natural to want to be accepted by others, but making that your sole source of self-esteem is a dangerous trap. When you derive your fundamental worth from external forces, you'll constantly be kept off balance, chasing after that next temporary hit. True self-worth has to be an inside job, tuning in to what matters to your authentic self, established boundaries, and living with integrity. That's the path to unshakable confidence. 12. We hold over-tight grip on our rigid beliefs and judgments. We all develop deeply ingrained belief systems about how the world works and what's right, wrong, good, bad, smart, stupid, and that's fine, to a degree. The problem comes when we arrogantly cling to those subjective viewpoints as inviolable universal truths, judging and dismissing anyone who thinks differently as irredeemably flawed or misguided. This arrogant rigidity slams shut the door to any possibility of growth, understanding, or expanded perception. Smart people recognize that their beliefs are works in progress, always evolving. Lighten your grip, judge less, and open yourself to new perspectives. Part of being human is forming viewpoints and philosophies about life. It's natural and can provide a moral framework to operate from. But dogmatically holding on to those beliefs without room for new information is the antithesis of growth. The wisest among us maintain open minds, willing to update their stances based on new experiences and evidence. Writing anyone off who disagrees is arrogant and closed-minded. 13. We obsess about things outside our control instead of focusing efforts productively. So much of our mental and emotional energy gets devoted to anguishing over circumstances entirely outside our ability to influence. The horrible traffic you can't control, the annoying co-worker you have to deal with, that frustrating political social issue that's upsetting. While venting for a moment can be cathartic, obsessing solves nothing and only serves to shorten your life through internal acid drips of anger, anxiety, and helplessness. Smart people learn to recognize what they can and cannot control and relentlessly focus their efforts on the former while having detached perspective about the latter. It's easy to get endlessly riled up about all the external situations that frustrate us daily. But at a certain point, obsessive anger and anxiety only harm ourselves while doing nothing to change the realities we're so worked up over. Far better to consciously refocus your mental energy on the areas you can directly influence. Your reactions, mindset, decisions, and efforts. That's taking back control. 14. We get hopelessly hung up on mistakes instead of growing from them. Everyone makes mistakes and poor decisions at times. It's baked into the human experience. Where people get tripped up is turning those missteps into mental prisons by obsessing over them endlessly through harsh self-judgment and rumination. Yes, take a clear look at what went wrong and glean lessons and growth opportunities. but then consciously choose to move forward instead of remaining stuck in shame, regret, or beating yourself up. The past exists only as a reference point for creating a wiser future. Don't let it weigh you down like corpse dragging behind you. Mistakes are actually opportunities for growth when viewed with the right mindset. Of course, take time to reflect with self-honesty on what led to the mistake and how you can update your approach moving forward. But then, opt to focus your efforts on making wiser choices presently rather than mentally lashing yourself indefinitely. That's just unproductive. Use missteps as stepping stones, not stumbling blocks. 15. We dwell on perceived unfairness and injustices rather than focusing on our power. How much of your finite life force gets drained by incessantly rehashing and stewing over the myriad ways you've been shafted, disrespected, or treated unjustly in this world? Those are all very valid feelings in the moment. But parking your mind's trailer for extended stretches in resentment pines robs you of something far more precious: your power and agency to proactively shape your life circumstances moving forward. Yes, acknowledge the indignity and frustrations. Then shift your mind to what constructive actions you can take to prevent it from happening again. Staying trapped in an angry cycle of ruminating on mistreatment only lets it foster and fester. Injustices and wounds can leave profound marks, so it's understandable to feel angry or bitter for a period. But when we choose to keep reliving those feelings indefinitely in our minds, we're only allowing those injustices to have ongoing power over us. The wiser choice is to process the feelings, extract wisdom about standing up for yourself differently next time, and then redirect your precious energy into productive efforts. Holding on to grievances chronically is self-destructive. Choose your power. If you have made it this far, comment down below with the word 100% to confirm that you have received the knowledge from this video. For more interesting topics, make sure you watch the recommended video that you see on the screen right now. Thanks for watching.